I should have stayed on the farm. SQ expressed the opinion that people who were high on liquid of great provender, such as that consumed by my friend NJ and me, had no business hiking around cliffs. I have to agree with her assessment, the truth of which only became clear to me after NJ and I were about 50 yards down a flight of improvised wooden steps. SQ had sense enough to hunt for mushrooms on level ground. Now I understand why skydivers wear parachutes. I can tell you that gliding down on the available air current sounds much nicer than plummeting to your death from a cliff in a state park. When I was 16 a few years ago, try 48 years ago, Willie, the feline observer, I could see well enough to read print. I even had a bicycle until my last eye surgery. Suddenly, I lost what little vision I had, but I kept forgetting that. I don't say this to elicit a sympathetic response. I'm telling you that I kept forgetting that I could not even see 3 feet in front of my nose. I would look forward to a movie, and once I got to the theater, it would hit me that I wouldn't be able to follow the darn thing. I would go to the annual fireworks display, fully anticipating pretty lights in the sky, only to be reminded that all I was going to get out of the situation was the privilege of smelling the people around me and listening to them sigh, "Oh, ah." I relate these facts about myself just so you can appreciate how lacking in intelligence I would have to be to forget that I had also had hip replacement surgery about 15 years ago. My fake hip has been painless, and until I'd managed to repel myself halfway down the mountain described earlier, it gave me very little trouble. The prosthesis bends like a natural limb, but sometimes it just won't do what I expect it to do. This means that I had to put my right foot on the step below me, and instead of swinging my left foot to the step below that, I could only swing it to the same step as the right foot. Progress was very slow. Do the hokey pokey down one of the Rockies if you want to try it for yourself. Being a blind cripple was pathetic enough. But, and this is very embarrassing, the effects of removal of a benign brain tumor had also slipped my mind. This little gem was about the size of a golf ball. It destroyed my hearing in my right ear. It also had a less than salutary effect on my ability to stay on my feet. Good balance is something you don't appreciate until you try to negotiate rough terrain. In other words, between my fake hip and general unsteadiness, I almost got to experience gravity's answer to human flight. When I wasn't in fear for my life, I had a wonderful time. It is one of those experiences that might have been on my bucket list if I had saved room for things that really could, no kidding, kill me. What inspired our little jaunt down the road to perdition was a springtime sport that many Hoosiers pursue. This is mushroom hunting. Morels are sought after all over the world. Indiana has a place where they should be easy to find. This place happens to be where my wine-drinking friend lives with her husband. So, I suggested that SQ and I take a trip there. All the way down the steps, NJ was trying to assist me by giving me a gentle shove when I least expected it. When NJ wasn't trying to help me realize a death wish, Mother Nature laid a generous supply of rocks, branches, and other detritus on my path so that I would feel free to take a tumble when things needed to be livened up. It took about a half hour to get down the first step, grouping. My vertigo didn't manifest itself immediately. In the way of such things, it sprung itself on me when I was about halfway down. Then, and only when all hope of a dignified retreat was removed, did I suddenly feel like I was going to take an impromptu dive into the clear spring morning. NJ assured me that the second flight of steps wasn't nearly as bad as the first. When my mother dropped me on my head, I must have bounced because I believed her. In fairness to NJ, the second set of wooden steps were probably just as good as the first ones. I made it down them, and by clinging to the banister, I remained almost upright. Then we got to the natural stone steps, where the fun really began. Some of the steps were itty-bitty on one end and wide and crumbly on the other. Other portions were composed of sliding gravel that a billy goat would have found challenging. Still, others were so slick that I was sure I would be launched to eternity in an avalanche of rocks and trees. I prayed to Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, and anybody else who may have been able to rescue me if needs be. Believe me, there were a few times when needs arrived with bells on. We finally got to the bottom. There was a picnic table and a beautiful level surface. It was close to a waterfall that we could enjoy from a relatively comfortable perch. I had envisioned sitting there for a couple of hours, enjoying nature and waiting for my heart to stop pounding when NJ announced,
"We'd better get back up the hill before dark." We sure don't want to do the steps when neither of us can see where we're going.
She had a point. I wasn't up to leading both of us back up that mess, so I caught as much of my breath as I could and up. Pant, we went.